That's enough.
It's 9 o'clock. We'll call the meeting in order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. An agenda has been provided before the meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would request to add item number 2 under consent agenda, auditor's warrants dated 4/8 of 19. Those were in your boxes. Under item 3, commissioner's warrants, Sandy from the auditor's office brought us down 2 add-on commissioner's warrants, one for road and bridge in the amount of $7,147.31, and one for revenue fund in the amount of $35,692.26. Request to add those on to the consent agenda. Beyond that, under other business, and I emailed that out yesterday, we have an out-of-state travel request from Commissioner Johnson. I'd like to add that at the bottom. And another item I have is a limited site investigation at the courthouse on a fuel oil tank site. We need to get that going so that we can get the company in here to do that. So that was, I sent that out in an email too, plus there's copies in your box as well. And lastly, on the back page of the agenda, received an email that the Southwest Mental Health Annual Meeting is being postponed due to impending weather. So that's not on the list anymore.
Mr. Chair, with those 4 additions, I'll move the agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Next up, we have the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay, next up we have Nick Berman, County Engineer, and Wayne Drew, Building Maintenance Supervisor. Morning, gentlemen.
Morning. First item I have on the agenda today is set a letting date for the courthouse parking lot project. I believe you all got that in your packets, plans and specs. Anybody have any questions or comments on that? Anything you'd like to see change before we?
Mr. Chair, Nick, is the sidewalk part of this plan? Is there just as shown here? Is there additional sidewalk besides what's shown here?
No, just what we have shown there. I believe there's another project going on with the steps that there's going to be some sidewalk done on.
That should be. How about to the front door of this building?
Yeah, that's in this plan.
Part of this.
Okay,
Yes,
'cause
that's in there.
pretty tacky. Here,
They have to run tile up
I
it.
didn't see that.
First, they have to run tile up it.
Okay.
That has to be torn out.
And we included in the specs that they have to do that outside of normal hours. So we have wheelchair access maintained to the building during normal business hours. So in the proposal there, it says that will, I can't remember how it's worded, but we say that it'll likely be at night or on a weekend when they have to do that work.
Sure. And I did have one question. Actually, Commissioner Wildermuth kind of shorted up in our law enforcement liaison meeting yesterday, and that was concern for law enforcement on how they're going to get in and out while the concrete's getting poured. And they've expressed concerns about that going back a while. And then I guess there's possible alternate route that's going to come out to the west for.
Yeah, I guess that's not in this plan, but Les talked to me a little bit about it today.
Okay, that was a big concern of theirs.
Yep.
So.
I think we had it in the specs. I believe that they have to leave access up to those steps.
Okay.
They could at least, well, they're pouring the driveway, so they could at least get that close, but if you guys wanted to work with them to add a driveway to the west, you know, they'll have fill material here. We spec out that the contractor has to get rid of.
Right.
So it would be an advantage to them. they wouldn't have to haul material in if it's right there, so.
Would this be a permanent driveway to the west?
Yes, it would
I
be in the
would like to
future.
see that myself. I think it'd be nice to have it available from either side.
Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, but
Like,
if we're making some changes, if it's gonna be temporary, it wouldn't cost a whole lot more to make it permanent.
Right.
I don't know, that's just my thought.
one of the problems a day like today with the election going on at the church, it gets awful congested to get in and out of there for an emergency or another driveway. They could exit that way out of the traffic and funerals and so forth.
I think Second Ave's a lot lower volume road too than Hiawatha. So,
So we just decided with prisoners coming and going to get inside to unload, using the steps sometimes isn't gonna be the best option.
Right.
This way, when we do the driveway or the parking lot in the future, we could do half and use one driveway while the other one's being replaced or worked on.
Part of the discussion, part of the thought process was, though, to not include that in with the parking lot, to keep that separate. And as far as being permanent, it could very well be that it might not be, paved the first year, let it go through a frost cycle before we actually pave it.
Probably a year down the road before we do any paving to it.
let all that fill settle and
Yep.
those good
Maybe
days.
you're doing a project nearby somewhere and have it paved whenever it's convenient.
Yep.
Okay.
That's a good idea, but that's different. It's not, like you say, it's not part of this.
No.
No, it's not, but I'd probably talk, if that's what you want, I'd probably talk to them right away before they start hauling fill out of
Yeah.
there.
That'd be a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other comments or questions for Nick?
No. Mr. Chair, I'll move that we set the letting date then for the parking lot project for May 14th at 10:30.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to set the bid letting date at May 14th at 10:30. Is there any other further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Hey.
Thank you.
So I have a few more items. The next one is the transportation resolution that we talked about last week. I believe it was included in your packet, a copy of the resolution that Murray County passed. They added a few items, and that was, the county engineer over there feels strongly that he'd like to see that money go to the highway user fund, which means that gets split up and that goes into the formula for our state aid allotment. His concern is, when they do big grant type projects or whatever, ends up kind of favoring the metro counties, like corridors of commerce. So, that's why they added this wording to try to get it into that highway user fund so we can kind of rely, or, know what we're gonna get every year, have a better idea, rather than applying for a grant. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't, so.
And I believe funds are more protected in this program than too, right? Where the state wouldn't be able to come and take it back.
Well, yeah, if they dedicated it to the highway user fund, that handout I gave you kind of shows how that's split up. The concern last week, which I didn't even think of, I can't remember, Luke or whoever brought it up.
Just
but-
concerned about if you make it too restrictive, you have run the risk of getting zero.
Right.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't know what to recommend on it, I guess that's,
Mr. Chairman, if I may add here, is just got an email from AMC yesterday. It said over 40 of the counties around the state have sent the resolution as AMC put together to the legislature. I mean, I appreciate the idea that Murray County's putting this in there, but you muddy it down, and if everybody starts doing their own thing, we lose that,
Continuity.
the continuity of the counties, and we're all on the same page working together. We understand where they're coming from, and I know what Nick's concern is too, to make sure we're getting that money in there, but to try to do it might just defeat the whole process too. To look at this one county's doing this, they want to do something different than another county, so.
Since they
There's-
can't agree, then zero.
That we're not agreeing, right,
Okay.
that the counties aren't in agreement, but.
I saw that email also,
Did you?
and I concur, especially in the light that 40 others have. Let's stay in the majority here and not stand alone on this. In fact, I'll go ahead and move the resolution as it was originally presented to us without that addendum to it.
The second, obviously you gotta change the date at the bottom, but
Right, yeah, we'll go ahead and change that, so that's,
Okay, we have a motion, second to accept the transportation funding resolution. Is there any other further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
All right, next item I have, it's to approve purchase of a new GPS system. This was set up for a purchase last year. If you recall, we were kind of done with ours by the time we were ready to do anything, update, but I wanted to hold off a year thinking maybe the, technology would be newer and wouldn't be outdated as quick. I had just a few little minute questions I wanted to wrap up last week. So I didn't have it on the agenda last week. I meant to tell you that I'd be back this week and I forgot. I'm sorry about that. After last Tuesday, though, one of our inspectors went to a workshop that they have every year, and the rep for this company was there and said, we just learned that we're going to be, if you order a new R10 from us, we're going to be giving out a free drone with it. So we called them back and said, hey, we heard that this is going on. Would you throw that in with the quote you gave us? They said, yep, we will do that. So, good thing we waited a week. Let's see here. So we want to switch up what we're doing just a little bit. Right now, if you've seen, there's what's called a base station. We set that up over a point, and then we got to be within a few miles of that or whatever. But this new system enables us to have like a virtual base connection. So if you have a good cell phone signal, you don't need to set up that base anymore, which saves quite a bit of time, actually. This system that I am recommending, if you were in a bad signal area, you could link it up to that old base station and be just like it always was. They don't really want to give us hardly anything for trade-in on the one we have, so we'd like to keep that one because it's not worth hardly anything. And we can actually run two of them at once for like staking on jobs or surveying on jobs, so I think that'd work out really well, actually. There's probably a software upgrade for the design software we need to do, but that should be for that, under that, we'd have about 10,000 left over on there. It should be under that. I'd like to probably hold off on that a little bit till we get fully staffed, see what everybody knows or whatever, and then we'll get something that caters our needs there. That drone I was referring to earlier, they gave us two options on it. I talked with the sheriff's office because we don't have anybody that can fly a drone or whatever, but I knew they had one, so I talked to them. And they were actually looking at getting another one, and the one they were looking at is one of the two options that we got from Trimble. And they said, yeah, well, we can just leave it with them and they'll use it as needed, and then if we need some pictures or something, they just come out and fly and take some pictures. So I think, yeah, that'd be fantastic. So.
How does that drone interface with the software, the GPS? Then can you actually put coordinates on that as you're flying, so you've got a reference back to it? Or
I don't know anything about drones. The only thing I can really think of that we'd use one for is possibly flying a project before we do it. So if there's some type of claim that, yeah, you guys did this or that, we
photos and get the lay of the land, so to speak, and different things like that from the air versus just driving by them. It might have some advantages there.
Remember some of those videos that David shared with us before as they would drive a project. That was always very
See the waterways and things from the air maybe a little better sometimes. That might be helpful.
Yeah, possibly flooding. Right. Stuff we could fly up and take a picture.
Bridge inspection.
Yep. There's a few bridges we need like a snooper truck to get up there on. This is possibly we could fly up there and take a picture with that. So, they didn't change their quote at all. So it doesn't sound like they take any off if we.
Mr. Chair, do you have an idea what the drone's worth? I mean, does it have cash value?
I believe I was talking with Edison.
Buy drones for $50 or whatever on up to.
He thought it was like 2,400 to 3,400.
So then I understand then when we had this discussion last year, we didn't buy any GPS equipment last year, so this is carryover. The equipment that we've got, I do concur with you, we'll go ahead and keep that. How old is that?
I want to say 2013 we bought that. Somewhere around, I didn't write that down, but it was somewhere in there. Yeah.
So budget-wise then, because we had money budgeted for this last year, so are we using last year's budget for it,
Yep.
or this year's budget? This is last year's budget money.
We had 20,000 in 2017 and 30,000 in 2018. But I wanted to hold off last year because they update that so often, and we had the bulk of the work done. So I thought, well, we could just about wait till it's till we need it again, and get the most current, so it doesn't outdate as fast.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve the purchase of this GPS equipment with the additional drone. That's a nice bonus.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Approve the purchase of the GPS software. Is there any other further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
All right, and then the last thing I had it comes back to that County Road 13 discussion. It looks like it would work out to push that project back a year and do bridges. We don't know of any consequences to doing that outside of having told everybody that we were going to do it this year. Some of the ones with larger temporary easements, we'll contact them and tell them that you can farm that this year. We'll do it next year instead. I'll probably send out a letter to everybody telling them what's going on. Outside of that, we didn't come up with any consequences, but you never know. There might be a couple little things that pop up. I think that's probably the best option right now.
Sure. The 13 is where we've got those culverts that we did, and we just got the gravel across there now.
Yep.
What are your thoughts? You want to leave that for another year, or you think about maybe putting an asphalt patch over those?
I think I'd like to try to leave them for right now. If it becomes a huge problem, maybe it's such a thing, we dig some of it out and maybe we try to lay some blacktop in there and level it out with the blade. It'd be pretty rough yet. Wouldn't be totally wasted because when we do our full depth reclamation on that surface and you have that bituminous material in there, that would be better than just gravel when they grind it all up. But if you want us to go ahead and plan on patching it, we can do that. But we could also try to just leave it as gravel and keep maintaining it.
Yeah, I guess just whatever would be safer for the traffic out there, because it's hard to keep that
It's
gravel smooth. So,
yeah, it takes work to do it. So
yeah. Any kind of a guesstimate of what it might cost? Do you want to maybe look into that, or?
yeah, I could look into that, but I don't know. We've done stuff like that before, where we buy the hot mix and haul it out there ourselves, and
So what would be a major expense?
It'd probably be take a bunch of guys labor to do it, and it wouldn't be as good as like a paving crew would do, but it'd probably be better than what it is actually. So I'll talk with our maintenance foreman and see what he thinks about it too.
Mr. Chairman, are those culvert areas signed with rough road or slow down or some
Yep,
sort
they have
of
bump
orange
signs.
sign to warn the public not to hit it at 55 miles an hour?
They have permanent bump signs there, and when I
Okay.
say permanent, I mean it's not just a barricade that
Yeah.
someone's gonna pick up and throw in the creek for entertainment or something. There's posts driven in the ground and.
Just thinking out loud, instead of asphalt or bituminous in there, would calcium chloride packed in there? Would that be a less expensive option? But it would hold better than just gravel. See what Doug thinks.
Yeah, I never thought of that. That's definitely worth looking into. Yeah. So I guess if you guys are fine with that, we'll probably just plan on delaying that project a year and we'll try to get some of those posted bridges out of the way.
Bridges are kind of a priority, I would think now at this point, so.
Makes good
Yeah.
sense.
I feel that way too. Kind of deflating, getting ready to do major improvement like that and kind of getting the rug pulled out from under you in the last minute, but.
Well, I think it's a smart move. We can't start until later with all the fall traffic.
Yeah, I don't want to close that one down. Yeah, we'd have a lot of unhappy people if we close that road during harvest, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend a motion to that shows it's the board making the decision, not just Nick. If that would be appropriate.
Entertain a motion at this time.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'll move that we delay the project on County Road 13 to redivert funds to do some of our bridge repairs.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other further discussion? Okay, not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All same, motion carries.
That's all I had for today, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Chair, I just had one quick question. I noticed the south of Hatfield on the new road that was redone a couple years ago, there's some pretty good dips in there. You think those will come out, or you think that, or is it too early to tell?
I noticed that too. This is the first year.
We don't have any holdback or anything at this point left on the construction of that, do we?
No, we haven't paid the final. We approved it a couple weeks ago. We're waiting on one.
I don't know that it's anybody's fault. It's just the way it is, you know?
Yeah.
Weather and such, so it makes a difference. But
Yeah, I don't know what to say on that. You know, it's sat a while. I didn't expect that.
No.
You know, there was some bumps there after that first winter, but then they put another lift on it. So I thought they were all going to be gone. I thought, man, that's going to work out really
Well, it
nice.
sounds like you're aware of it anyway, so that's.
Yeah, yeah. I've driven it this spring and I felt it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Do you have any roads underwater?
As of a few days ago, we had 3 closed yet. I'm not sure is the status of those, if they're open again or not. Then we had, I think it was 11 spots we had problems with over the past weekend. Who knows what it's going to look like the end of this week, so.
You won't be able to see it.
You won't be able to see it, there you go, yeah. So, I'm sure we'll be out plowing again, the way it sounds, so. All right, well, that's all I had, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up we have Michelle Justin from UCAP.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having us. So I'm Michelle Jensen. I'm the Family Services Manager for United Community Action Partnership. Our main office is in Marshall.
Please have a seat.
Oh, sorry, I'm used to standing when I'm a little uncomfortable sitting and talking. And I work out of our Jackson office. I supervise staff in 10 counties here in southwest Minnesota for our emergency housing programs and a whole bunch of other ones.
I'm Shelley Rickus with UCAP also. I'm out of the Marshall office and I'm a case manager.
So we're here today to talk about a resolution, but I'm going to give you a little information first. I'm sure you're familiar with our services because of the transit services, but United Community Action is a 501c3. We work with low-income individuals and families to provide support, assistance, resources to help them resolve a crisis, meet their basic needs, and to also look at what their pathway out of poverty might be. We have a large number of programs. I'm sure you're familiar with Head Start and transit and energy assistance, and then we have emergency housing, which is what we're here to talk about today. We have a continuum of housing services from emergency shelter through permanent supportive housing with a housing first model. So as we all know, if you don't have a place to live, everything else in your life is more difficult, finding employment, etc. So we focus on helping people get their housing or become housed and then work on the other things that come along with that. So we have been providing homeless prevention and assistance services for a lot of years. Previously, just a little background, I'm sure you also know this, Southwestern Minnesota Opportunity Council provided family homeless prevention and assistance program services in Pipestone County, as well as the other 3 counties they serve. When their long-term staff, Paula Bears, retired, SMOC made the decision to no longer provide homeless services and emergency housing in their service area, and our agency was asked to provide those services, which we said that we would, and SMOC was a grantee for this particular program under our grant. So we help households who are facing the prospect of homelessness through eviction process to help resolve the crisis by providing case management services to not only stabilize their current housing, but to maintain it and avoid future housing issues. Resolution depends on each family's circumstances and what brought them to that point and what it looks like going forward. Sometimes we're able to help them stay in their current housing using prevention funds to resolve the eviction or possibly the mortgage foreclosure issue. In other circumstances, it doesn't make sense to keep them where they're at because it's not going to be affordable for them going forward, and they're going to end up in the same boat. In those circumstances, we look at rehousing them into more affordable housing. The other piece of the Family Homeless Assistance and Prevention Program is the homeless assistance portion, and that's to assist people that are already homeless get into housing. And we can do that by paying first month's rent, security deposit, utility deposit. Sometimes it is providing transportation assistance to help them search for housing or search for employment. But they also work with our case managers, whether they're in the prevention program or the homeless assistance program. And the case managers help identify what barriers they might have to stable housing and to being able to maintain that housing going forward. And they look at things such as increasing income, looking at their spending plan or the family budget and figuring out what is affordable. And then looking at, what happened to get them where they're at and what can we help you do to prevent that in the future. As I said, we can do rent arrears. We do some mortgage foreclosure, but a lot of times when people come to us for foreclosure prevention, they're so far behind, we just don't have the grant funds to do that. And so we have hired a full-time case manager to help serve the 4 counties that SMOC serve with homeless services. In Pipestone County, we're going to have our case managers from the Marshall area be covering up here at this point as well. We have to build those relationships because SMOC has been providing the services. So we are working on learning the contacts here so that people can be making those appropriate referrals and stuff to us. We have just some information about our program as a whole, and these numbers include SMOC service area as well, but we served 419 families from the last biennium, which would have been 2015 to 2017. 244 of them were families with children and 175 were singles. We have priority populations or targeted populations, which are families with minor children, those fleeing domestic violence, households with disabilities, and also youth and unaccompanied youth. And we do serve, a number of youth each year as well. A majority of our service dollars go to rent payment assistance. That's where most of the dollars go to. That and security deposits. We do have really good outcomes. We have over 90% of our families that remain in their housing after they've left our program. We do follow up with them in 6 months, and they're still eligible for case management services after they exit the program. The Minnesota Housing Partnership provides some data on each county in the state, and I have a handout for you guys that we can leave for you. But this one's specific to Pipestone County, and it shows that from 2000 until 2017, the median rent in Pipestone County increased by 15%, and that the median renter income decreased by 12%. And so there's a bit of a disparity, as you can see, to people being able to maintain their housing. So we really believe that these services are real important to have, and we plan to broaden the outreach to Pipestone County so that people are aware of the services as well. Purpose for us being here today is we get these grant funds through a competitive grant process from Minnesota Housing. And as part of that process, we have to obtain the permission from your board to be able to provide these services in your county. There is no cost to the county to allow us to do that, and that's the purpose of the resolution that we're asking you to consider and sign for us today. Do you have any questions for me? Happy to answer them.
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, you mentioned the Southwest Minnesota Opportunity Council counties, and so previously this Pipestone was under their income maintenance, or excuse me, their housing support.
Yes.
So this would replace that now. Did SMOC also relinquish theirs for Murray, Rock, and Nobles as well too, or just
Yes.
Pipestone for all of
All
those?
four.
Okay. The other thing that I have never been able to fully comprehend is the overlap in services, because isn't Southwest Health and Human Services out of Marshall, don't they also have programs for income maintenance? And don't they also have caseworkers that work on that?
They do, and we work with our community partners like Southwest Health and Human Services so that we're avoiding duplication. A lot of times we work in coordination with them. So if someone would come in, this is just kind of a general example, but we have income, or not income limits, but limits of assistance we can provide. So if someone comes in and they're a couple months behind on their rent and it's $1,500, the most that our program can pay is $1,000, and we do require that our households also apply for emergency assistance from the county. And lots of times we're partnering with the county and we're paying a portion and they're paying a portion. And then the services that they provide are different than the services that we provide. So if they're not working on a budget with somebody, we would be. If they're helping them renew their combined application form and renew for their SNAP benefits and their health benefits and stuff, then we're not doing that with them. So we do have the ability to avoid the duplication of services. Now we have all of our case managers are certified MNsure navigators, so they're helping people access health care. We receive a SNAP outreach grant from the state of Minnesota. So a lot of times the county's referring those people to us to help them do their health care application, to help them do their SNAP application or their recertification. And so that's how we're working together.
Because UCAP is not a government entity. They are a 501(c)(3).
Correct.
So you work in conjunction with our Southwest Health and Human Services.
Yes, very closely.
But it's not a duplication what they're doing.
No.
And by applying for this grant, you are not competing for the same grant money that Southwest Health and Human Services is?
No, we are not.
Okay.
No. We put out RFP within our 18-county continuum of care region. Every 2 years, we send out an RFP so that any eligible entity can apply for the same funds that we apply for and be the lead grantee or sub-grantee, however that works. And the county has never applied for that. And we don't think that they will, because we're pretty much the housing services provider in the 18-county area. Prairie 5 is a sub-grantee of ours. So we focus on housing services more than technically income maintenance in these programs.
Ultimately, whose responsibility is it to provide these services?
Our agencies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though you're not a government entity, you're a private entity.
Correct. So Minnesota Housing grants their money in different ways. So you have to be an eligible 501c3, or you can be a county that applies. So like in the metro area, they have, like Hennepin County applies for the funding, but then they grant it out to other housing service providers as sub-grantees. In this area for, it's over 15 years, our agency has been the lead grantee, and we've had sub-grantees.
And how do you interface then with some of the other programs we have here in the city as far as the HUD programs?
So I'm going to be honest, because we're just getting into Pipestone County. I'm not super familiar with all of them, but I can speak about the other counties that we work in. So we do a lot of advocacy for our clients that are in HUD housing. We help them apply for those services. We can help them if they apply for income-based housing and they're denied. We help them do their grievance hearing, potentially, so they may be denied initially because they have to be. And then you can do a grievance hearing, and sometimes they will change that decision. So we work closely with the Worthington Housing and Redevelopment Authority, because they're the Section 8 voucher provider, and we help do applications, and we help them find housing and those kinds of things. So we're all very interconnected, and all those agencies, Southwest Health and Human Services, as well as represented on our Continuum of Care board and committee, and so they're part of that decision-making process.
Thank you. That's always been a bit of an enigma for me to figure out how these different agencies work in conjunction for the same goal.
Yeah, and we have to, we focus a lot on not duplicating services because, you heard the large number of families we served over 2 years, but there is also a large number that we're unable to serve. And so if someone else is doing that work, we want to use our dollars to support other work. So
just to recap then, so the grant money then that you were going to be applying for, you're looking for our support for that, and it doesn't have a direct cost to the county for it because we're supporting your pursuit of this federal grant. But again, it doesn't compete with any of our other programs that we're involved with, whether it be the HUD program that we're not directly involved in, but with our Southwest Health and Human Services and also our Southwest Minnesota Opportunity Council. It doesn't directly compete for those same dollars.
correct. The dollars from the Southwest Minnesota Opportunity Council, when Paula left, they actually transferred their funds for their housing services to our agency to finish out the biennium.
Very good. Thank you.
These are state funds, aren't they?
They're state funds.
State funds,
yeah.
it's not federal money.
Correct, state funds.
Okay.
So the people served have to fall under the Minnesota homelessness definition and not the federal.
Do you have issues with people with a criminal background as far as obtaining housing?
We do, they're very hard to house.
And, what are their options?
Most of the time it's housing with private landlords. And we find that we have built some really good landlord relationships in the 9 counties that UCAP served previously before taking on the 4 for SMOC. And so a lot of times we find that landlords are willing to work with that person if they're involved with our agency as well. Because we do home visits, we provide case management, we're keeping an eye on the property for them while they're
Does
in
that
our
include the
program.
rental rates as far as them working with you? Because I know in some cases, they probably can't afford to pay traditional rent.
Right, and so if someone were to get into housing where they can't afford the market rate rent, we have different programs that can help them longer term until they are able to stabilize. This particular program is meant to be short term. Most people are in it less than 6 months. And one of the requirements for this particular program is that they have income when they enter. Because if we're helping them, we need to be able to reasonably assess that they can afford the housing going forward when our assistance ends, because it is such a short-term program where others go up to 24 months. So we have time to work with the family and they have time to work on increasing their income, whether it's through employment or disability or something like that.
And then one other question, does SMOC still handle like weatherization and fuel assistance where you just are housing only?
Yep, we're just doing the housing services.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we support UCAP's Family Homeless Prevention Assistance Program request for this period, July 1st through June 30th of 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I keep those with you? It's pretty-
Shelley? Excuse me, how do you spell your last name?
R-Y. K-H-U-S.
R-Y-K-H?
K-H. U.S.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just want to get that right for my minutes. If you have a moment, I can get the resolution signed before you leave.
Perfect.
There's 3 copies for you. Okay.
Thank you for coming, ladies.
Yes, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
When will we hear back on the grant request?
The grant's been submitted. They need the resolutions when they determine grant funding to show it's in place. And so we did earlier this year, they put the grant request out earlier, so we're guessing sometime end of this month to mid.
Well, good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Oh,
My agenda's just.
that's okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Glad you guys are coming.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. All right, next up, we have Auditor Treasurer Tyler Reich.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Tyler.
All right, so I do have a couple things for you here. Oh, that's really okay. There we go. All right. So the first thing is that we just need to set up the public hearing for another home initiative abatement request from Gary and Joan DeVries, and parcel number 09.004.0200. I set it on, I put in the public notice 4/23 at 9:40. Steve, I'm guessing that works.
That's fine. Then we have another one at
9:30.
9:30, so.
I don't know, I tried to get them close together.
Yep, that's perfect.
It didn't take
That'll
very
work
long, so.
just fine.
I guess the annual abatement amount roughly was $577.89, so I'm just looking for the public hearing approval so that we can get that published.
Move to approve that request for hearing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
The other small thing that I had is I know that we briefly discussed this last time, that we set up the public hearing about extending the program. Joyce, the county assessor, and myself have had a discussion, and it would be nice to, if we are going to extend that, to extend it sooner rather than later, because we have been getting comments from the public as far as, do I need to build my house this year? Can I wait until next spring? So on and so forth. So it just, I guess the public would like to know if we are going to be extending it, and it doesn't matter if we do it now or if we do it next December. I just figured if we're gonna do it, let's do it a little bit sooner if we can, strictly for building season coming up and just kind of letting everybody know. So, I'm not saying we have to do it today.
For that,
I'm not a lawyer, I guess. I don't.
Last time, I think we just.
I think we, I mean, it's our own program. I think we just did it by resolution.
I think so.
Yeah, so.
We can think about for a month or so. And
Exactly, yep.
bring it back if we think it
Exactly,
over, if we want to
yeah.
continue it or not.
It's been a pretty popular program since we implemented it.
Correct, yep.
And obviously, it's being effective. You've got people coming to you saying it's gonna.
Right, exactly. You know, I mean, it's just,
It's a good program, and I would certainly be in favor of
Yep.
continuing as well, too, so.
Yes, definitely.
so.
Is there any reason why we can't take action sooner than that?
I mean, I don't know if you want to double check on the legal standards just to make sure that we do everything right. I mean, I think we did resolution, but of course it was over 3 years ago when we did this, so.
Maybe some checking back and see if we need to confer with County Attorney Sandy on anything here
Exactly.
too.
Thing, or just something we
right,
just did.
we can always put it on in a couple of
Yep,
weeks.
Bring it back on the
exactly.
23rd.
I'm pretty sure that's what we did, but I,
Look into it and see.
Good
what-
through the end of this year, correct?
we're good through the end of this year. It's mainly for those people wondering if they have to rush and build their house this year or if they can wait until next spring. You know, it's been a pretty wet spring this year, so, just to kind of keep that in mind, and like I said, we can bring it back in a couple weeks, so.
It'd be great.
All right.
Bring it back on the 23rd. Give
Yeah,
us
we
a
can bring
couple
it on
weeks.
the, I'll be talking about the public hearings about those anyway, so we can talk about it then too, so.
As it stands, it would end the end of December?
Correct.
Start
It'd be
on
the end of
first.
this year. Yep. So, I guess we're in favor. I mean, I have no problem with extending it whatsoever. We're just kind of starting the abatements themselves this year, so we'll kind of get the first test of that. But really, all it is just cutting a couple extra checks. So it's really not that big of a deal.
And I believe you'd mentioned before that we're almost to the end of some of that 3-year period from the very first one, so we'll start to realize some tax income off the properties.
No, the abatements are actually just starting for those first ones because that's how long the process takes to
Oh,
get
I
it
see.
taxed. Yes.
I misunderstood that.
I mean, yeah, those people, they're just building them, but it takes a year and a half, 2 years to get it on your tax.
Taxes
because
is always a year behind. And
correct. Yep. So, I mean, we're just starting to pay out the abatements this year. So, I guess that's all I really had. So,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our regular business. Let's see, as far as other business, Kathy, do you have any personnel?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
So, just wanted to give a formal start date for Nate Stoll. he started as a junior appraiser in the assessor's office on the 1st of April. And we did advertise internally for the intermittent foreman part of his highway maintenance worker job. This is the individual that backs up for Doug when Doug needs to be gone. He runs the crew in emergency situations. So we did advertise internally for that. Jim Lustfield was interested, and we feel he would be a good fit and made an offer to him. So he actually started that yesterday. So the only difference there is he has the intermittent foreman piece added to his job. He's been a highway maintenance worker for almost 30 years. And so he'll earn $1 more per hour for those duties. And he started yesterday, April 8th, for that. And then also I had a credit card request in the board packet. One credit card for Nate because he is going to be doing a lot of training for the assessor's office to get his CMA. So he's going to need a lot of lodging and conference registrations. And then also for Kim Murphy, who is our assessing technician, and she's been here for about a year. She's been using Joyce's credit card, but they've been running into some maxing out issues, so it'd be really nice to get her own as well. So, my request, my formal request is to approve credit cards for those two individuals today.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that we do approve individual credit cards for Nate Stoll and for
Kim Murphy.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I would think that it leads to better accounting having their own individual one versus having to share one with somebody else, so.
It does. It works a lot better, so.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Thank you.
I do have another question for Kathy while you're here too, though. With Nate Stoll, with his, how is he sitting on his credentialing then for his assessor training?
Oh, he's just started, so
Yeah.
nothing yet.
And so it's an ongoing process.
So it'll be 6 months, I think they recommend, before you start your first training session for the assessor's office. So he's looking at this fall. I think they're looking October, something like that, to start sending him to training. So there might be one small one in August. I think Joyce was going to register him. And
Does he have like some online training courses that he takes as he goes through this, or it's through an on-the-job training program?
I think it's all in person initially. Yeah. So.
We'll wish him well with that.
Thank you. I think I might have jumped over, but I guess next up we'll do the limited site investigation for the fuel tank.
Mr. Chairman, in your packets, you have my request for board action. What this is stemming back to is back to 1998, when the 3,000-gallon diesel tank was removed, and you have a photo, and it's highlighted where it's at, and it used to be, I should say. It's not there anymore. It was removed out of there. That was changed when the boiler system got changed here, and the generator system was put in, and the dual fuel boilers weren't dual fuel anymore, so that tank was removed. MPCA, the project manager in this, her name is Nancy Hennon, and this project was never finalized out. They needed to have groundwater testing, and it never happened for whatever reason. So what she did is send it to Wayne, and we got the quotes on it to go ahead and get this limited site investigation. It's very similar to the one we're doing over at the school. Only difference is there's sampling in the area where that 3,000-gallon tank used to be, where that circle was, to check the groundwater, see if there's any contamination when it was pulled out. They're not expecting to see any, but they need to do this to final it out. So I did get 2 quotes, which are required so that we can be reimbursed by the Petro Fund. One is from West Central Environmental at $75.30, and the other one was from Metco at $88,053. And if you remember, Metco is the company that is doing the project over at the Central School, and they're done with that. So you never know who's gonna get it one way or another, it's just how they bid them. So since we have 2 competitive bids and we accept the low bid, we'll be, then after this is done, we'll be able to apply to the Petro Fund to get $6,777 or 90% of our cost reimbursed back to us. So recommendation would be to approve the quote of West Central Environmental for the limited site investigation at the former tank site at the courthouse.
I'd move to approve that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second to approve the limited site investigation courthouse. Is there any other further discussion?
Did you know approximately where the location where this was?
Yep.
So we know the maps.
Okay. I didn't.
It's right to the north of where the generator is sitting. It's all been filled in for a long time.
It's not going to disturb the parking lot project.
Yep, no, it has nothing to do with the parking lot. They'll come in on the backside and punch their holes, get their samples, and be like a day project, I presume. So all they do is push probes down and take samples, core samples, and then vapor samples to see if there's anything there. They're not expecting anything because this was not a leak site. This is a tank that was removed, and they just want to make sure it's closed out. The other tank we had here, if you look in there, there was a 10,000 gallon gasoline tank there that actually leaked. The tank itself didn't leak, but the supply pipe that fed it to the dispenser, because actually back in the day when this county courthouse was built, they built this, they had their own fuel supply here for filling up the squad cars. And then the 10,000 gallon tank was way down on the very bottom, like down in this area, there was a big 10,000 gallon tank buried on a concrete slab down there. And it leaked, and when they pulled it out, they had a lot of gasoline down there and had to do a lot of excavating to get it moved out of there. And I do have copies of that old documentation that the state pulled out of archives for us too. So, but that's not part of it, but they had a really significant leak in a pipe and caused a lot lot of gasoline to
They're
leak.
not going to probe there or open
No,
up that
that's not
case
part of
again
this.
as part of this
No,
deal,
that's
so.
not part of this at all. They're going where the 3,000 gallon diesel fuel oil tank used to be.
Is there a realistic possibility that some of that could have migrated, some of the gasoline could have migrated out and could be involved where this fuel oil tank was at?
No,
now, or-
because the gasoline tank was downhill from where
Okay.
this is.
And they've done a thorough job of cleaning at that time.
Yeah, oh
so
yeah,
they're sure.
yeah, I've got records of it here that they did some massive excavation on there. And I learned too, reading through it, that the tank actually was sitting on a concrete slab underground. So they had to excavate quite a large area. If you want to review it, I'd be happy to make you copies and throw in your pack.
No, I
Did
think
they
that's
remove that concrete as well?
I don't believe so. I think the concrete stayed. Was fine, but.
Okay, is there any other?
Built something, you got a base.
You pass that around, that'll kind of show you where that 10,000 gallon tank was at based on the property.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Is there any other further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Thank you for that.
Yep, thank you. And then, let's see, what was it? Next up, we have out-of-state travel request by Commissioner Johnson.
Highway 23 Coalition is planning a Washington DC trip from June 18th to 20th. They currently have 7 people committed to go. They're looking for 10 or more to get their travel discount or whatever. Yesterday, their board agreed to provide up to $500 to offset a portion of the cost to attend. They have scheduled meetings with 5 of the 8 representatives from Minnesota currently. They're, still trying to get together with the others. They're also trying to meet with the South Dakota delegation, since, the 23 obviously kind of ends up near South Dakota. They also have a breakfast scheduled with Amy Klobuchar, and basically they're just lobbying on their own behalf since they don't hire a lobbyist or anything. I guess I'm just throwing it out there,
So they're not going to pay for your trip other than $500?
Correct.
Well, I guess we joined this thing for approximately $2,500.
$1,500. Yeah.
And since we've been paying roughly $300 a month for per diem and mileage to meetings, give or take, isn't that a fair statement? Or
Probably.
I guess I didn't feel that that was part of the agreement in the first place anyway. SRDC pays per diem and mileage from, if you go to their meetings, I wouldn't know why this group wouldn't as well. I think they're asking quite a bit for us to come out and come up with $300 a month plus a trip to Washington.
I guess it just
I think
depends on
$300 a month is excessive myself too.
if you want to have anything done to,
Well, I don't think we're gonna get anything done here for 50 years anyway, Luke. I mean, I'm in favor of it, but I think the $1,500 a month is more than enough for our representation there. They can send us a report once a month of what they decide. And, it's gonna be
I don't care one way or another.
Well, I understand, but I'm
That
just
goes,
saying,
but-
I think we're kind of out here on the tail end of it anyway. And, yeah,
Right, but I guess they're, if you want to
cities
be,
that are involved in along the thing, I can see they've got a big stake in this thing and how it goes through their communities and bypasses them and whatever. But what we get out here is gonna be minimal at best. That's just my feeling. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but
I guess if you have no representation, your chances of getting anything are less than if you are trying
we have
to.
representation. We have our representatives that do work for us that we elect, and we can't lobby for everything under the sun either.
Right.
You know, I guess.
I know, speaking of, I know a state senator from St. Cloud, I believe, is attending. So apparently.
Well, they have a big stake in Highway 23, and so does Marshall and a lot of these other communities along the way.
Right.
I feel sometimes with the big trips to Washington DC and so forth, I don't know if the benefit is there for our capital outlay. I think it's a big expense for us. I understand the whole concept. We need to be represented. We need to have a face there. But sometimes I think we have to look at what does it truly benefit us by putting that out there. And in this case, I'd be a little hesitant to spend the money to go to DC. I don't mean to diminish at all what you're doing. I appreciate your efforts in keeping our name out there, because as this goes, it's more than just what they're doing with the highway right now. We're looking down the road for years. We want to make sure that when the time comes that they're here, that we've got a voice. So I do understand that. But I don't know if we can truly justify expending the taxpayers' money at this point for it. So I want you to understand that I do support what you're doing.
Personally, I think for the most part, Highway 23 is in pretty doggone good shape in our county. Well, I know it's not concrete all over and all that, but coming from I-90 up, it's all the way to Marshall. It's a pretty darn good road for.
Well, except for around Russell.
Well,
I was going to say,
there's
from
some
Pipestone
area.
to Russell, I think is pretty rugged.
You know, there's roads like Highway 75, for example, that's a disaster all the way from the state line up to Pipestone. And there isn't even on the 5-year plan. I was at a meeting last week and they don't even have it on there for even from the county line to Rock County to Laverne. It isn't even. And I expressed that I thought what they did 3 or 4 years ago on 75 north of the county line to Pipestone was a pile of junk too. It was a waste of money.
Yeah, I agree.
If you drive on it now, it's all cracked up, and that's only, 3 years ago or whatever.
Both of what they did on 75 and 30 was a waste of
Unless they
money.
go deeper and do a better job, there's no point even doing it.
Right.
So they agreed, they had been on that road and said, yeah, we're aware of that, so. But what does that mean? I think 23 is in pretty good shape compared to some of our other roads, but, and it's a whole different issue, I understand.
Well, I think you should drive that stretch, especially from Holland to Russell. There are some large holes
I
right
guess I haven't been
there.
up there for a while either, but.
Tire-sized holes, yeah.
But,
The stretch from 14 to a little bit past Russell, just terrible.
And
Outside of the bypasses.
It's no better from Holland to Ruthven.
It doesn't.
I mean, there's spots where there's holes as wide as a car tire and deep for long stretches.
Okay, well, getting back to it, is there a motion to approve this out-of-state request this time?
I guess it'd be easier to approve if they would pay more of it.
Yeah.
We're probably looking at a couple $1,000 tab or more.
Yeah.
They had thought approximately 1,500.
And what I see is Highway 23 coalition's built with both municipalities, counties, public entities, and private as well. You see a lot of private business individuals that are in on this too. And with the big names that are in part of Highway 23 coalition, I don't know if I think those guys with the big money may be able to get there themselves rather than putting it on the taxpayer. I think these private business owners are more
I'm sure
than
they are.
equipped.
They had a group reported last week at the SRDC at the transportation meeting about that Highway 23 Commission and their hopes and dreams and all that. But they didn't talk about this trip, but they did report on what they were working on and things, and a lot of it centers around the larger cities north and east of us, you know. But
All that aside, I think they are doing great work. They're active. They are very active and whatnot. I think being a part of the group is beneficial, but where do we draw the line, though?
Yeah, that's true.
When they're going back, is there a motion for approval? Okay, the request fails by lack of a motion. All right, is there any other business coming before the board? Otherwise, next up we have a closed session for county administrator evaluation.
I do have one quick question. I might be out of order here. I probably should have asked this before when we did our bills at the start of it. On our per diems, I guess I had forgotten that Road and Bridge wasn't allocated one. I see both you and I, Chris, didn't put down Road and Bridge.
The Road and Bridge hearing?
Road and Bridge hearing.
I was assuming that was like
Yeah,
truth
the
and
hearing
taxation.
isn't allowable.
The hearing is?
Yes.
Yeah, see, and I forgot it. I
That's
see
not a
you did
regular
as well
board
too,
meeting.
so we
Should
can put it on next month.
Put it on your next one.
Yeah, we'll
Put it on next month,
yeah.
Yep.
I couldn't remember if that was one of the.
Yeah, I was confused by that too. I thought that it wasn't, so it's the truth and taxation that's not.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Or equalization.
Board of Equalization,
meeting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for clarifying that, Dan.
there is just for information, there is a meeting coming up for zoning about a batch plant being put in Dave Holstein's gravel pit. And there may be some people coming. I don't know the public. It'll be a meeting on a Monday night, I think, early May.
That's for a project on 91.
I don't know where the hot mix is going to go.
Yeah.
I haven't heard the project. 91 is one that is going to get done this year. That may be where it's going.
Do you know
I don't
which stretch of 91 is being done?
It's from Adrian up towards,
To Russell.
I think to 23.
Yeah, I read something on that this week
Okay.
about that, you know.
So, yeah, there
like
is.
a 5 mile
That's the
stretch?
only one I know of that's in,
I think it's a 5 mile stretch they're doing, isn't it?
on 91?
Yeah.
Oh, it goes all the way up.
Okay.
I
From
think.
Russell to Adrian, that'd be quite a few miles.
It's really bad from
728
I-90
miles.
north.
Okay.
That's
that
the
in our
only one I
maintenance
know of that's
district?
going to be done.
Is that District 8 or District
That's
7?
District 8 and 7.
Yeah, well,
Okay, it's in both of them?
But that might be something of, I don't know, if you hear anything about it, or somebody, people complain about it, we'll see what happens. Pipestone's a little ways away from it here, but
Yeah. Those batch plants, that's a normal application that they always go in gravel pits like that.
The
That's,
biggest issue is always the traffic.
truck traffic and
Yep.
dust and stuff.
yep, so we'll have the same discussion again about haul roads and dust and.
Okay.
So that'll be a conditional use.
I suppose, I don't know.
It'll come back here eventually.
But there'll be, I don't think Murray County actually has much aggregate, so a lot of it comes from Pipestone County, because there's a area over there that doesn't have much, so. Anyway, just something to think about.
All right. Is there any,
Motion to go into closed session?
okay, we have a motion.
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and second to go into closed session. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
We may have to review this part.
It will get redone, but it's not part of the contract, because there's some other spots.
This is kind of.
Have you heard anything from the gas company?
I don't know if it's.
they painted this area.
All right, we're recording again.
Okay, thank you. Okay. We're continuing the regular commissioners meeting.
Should we lose just a second?
Okay, yep, absolutely.
Kyle?
Yeah, he's gone. Kyle's gone.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve the satisfactory evaluation for Steve Ewing.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion second for approval of a satisfactory performance evaluation for Steve Ewing. Is there any further discussion? Okay, if not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We appreciate your work you've been doing for us.
Is there any other business to come before the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Got it. Got it all, Mr. Chairman?
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second, all right. Any further discussion?
Okay, who did that? You start, Les and Luke?
Luke and Les.
Okay.
I second.
Luke, thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. We stand adjourned. Motion carries. We stand adjourned.
And I really hope you understand.
Security thing, I was gonna tell these guys.
Recognize what we're doing, but